3 things you're doing wrong if your projects are costing under 100K. But what is a 100K project? Well, it's a small project. And even though it might feel like a big project to you, this is, in the scheme of things, it's not a big project, it's a small project. And why does this matter? Well, if it's a small project, you need to have a look around what these types of projects require and why this might cause you problems as a designer. And I've now worked with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interior designers who have been offering services, and the vast majority of them have been for projects under 100K. So what I mean by that is whether it's $100, $100,000, pounds, US, UK, US, Australian or Canadian, it's around about that fee. So it's just kind of looking at that 100K. This is a good limit, or euros. This is a good limit because it shows, well, first of all, it shows how much profit you could actually make as a service on this kind of project. If the vast majority of projects, and you should calculate the fee for them, if they're under 100K, this is a small project. And like I said, even if to you or to your client, it's a big project. But the reason why I highlight this is because when you consider the fee that you could, the biggest fee that you could ever get for 100K, I mean, even at 25%, that's 25,000 on 100K, that would be a hard sell. Because when you look at, and I'm just specifically talking about your fee, not your sourcing budget, for example. So the actual money that goes into your account to pay yourself. So that is not a lot on 100K. When you think about the amount of time that most people put into that project, they're running the project like a big project, and it's not a big project. So I always use 100K as a figure because it's a good kind of, well, it's easy math for me, not always my strong point, but it's an easy one for most people to remember, because if you're having projects that are $500,000, okay, all of a sudden now we're starting to get into bigger fees, bigger movement in terms of where you can sit in terms of making a profit and making a fee on the project. But if it's up to 100K, which is unfortunately the vast majority of projects that most designers are getting, this isn't a lot, and there's not a lot of scope. When you think about the average price for a 100K project, let's say even if it is at 10%, so let's say just say your fee for the client's project of 10K is around 100K is about 10K, which is the average. If it is around 10K, what can you actually do for 10K in a year? Not much. So even if you're aiming, let's even just say that you're aiming for 10K a month. So if you're aiming for 120K a year or 10K a month, that is 1 month of project. So if you are looking at how much work can be done in, okay, let's say a 30-hour week. So all of a sudden, it all starts to kind of make sense in terms of what can be created for the client for that kind of money. So why is this an issue? Well, and why is this something that you should try and reconsider and change? Well, first of all, if you're running the project like a big project, you're likely doing full service, which means you take the project on from start to finish and across. And if even on a small project, so even on a small project that requires full service design, if you are taking it on from start to finish, that might take you a few months. So concept, detail design, technical design, tendering or bidding, then project procurement, sourcing, and then project completion, styling. If you're doing all of those elements, is that worth 10K? Like, even if you're getting 10K, because the vast majority of designers I know aren't even getting that for a 100K project. So think about what you're actually earning on a project that is small. So you can't run it like a big project. If you can't run it like a big project, what do? Well, you need to see that it's a small project, acknowledge that it's a small project, and understand that it requires a different way of procurement. So that means we price these differently. We put boundaries in place, because the way that I suggest always working on small projects is to create packages around them, because that gives clear boundaries: what is included, what's not included. This is a small project, and that means it takes this long for me. This is what you get, the product output or the service that I've provided, and it means that this is what you get for the price. And that allows the client to understand what they can get for that money without the misconceptions that they can get everything for nothing. And it also allows you as a professional to respect the amount of work that you do and put boundaries in place. So obviously there's this kind of idea about complexity of a project. But again, when you look at a 100K project, I mean, the brutal truth of it is about money. It is about how much the project is worth, and it's not worth that much. So when you have to balance it out, and of course, all of us want to give the best to our clients. We want to provide the best service, but it's not a lot of money. So that what they're going to get for that budget is not going to be your full service ever, in most cases, because they just can't afford it unless they're willing to give you that 25% of that 100K. And most people won't, because 100K is a lot of money to a lot of people, or the vast majority of people who are renovating and undertaking a project, and they will very rarely see the value in giving you £25,000 out of, or $25,000 out of 100, just to do that work, because they're going to be thinking, well, that means that I get less. That's their mentality. So, they really are about the price, because these types of projects, because they are about how much can actually practically, just in practical sense, get done for that amount of money. And designers, we are very, what's the word? Not potentially hopeful, but we're very optimistic in what we can provide. And obviously we think that, if we give a little bit more, then, the client will see the value in that. The reality is sometimes the client only has the amount of money that they have. And there are projects that are different to that, and obviously that's a different discussion. But if the price of the project is the price of the project, then the fee that you've got is basically set. So the service or the scope of service that you can provide is basically set. You cannot go beyond that without being paid more. So that is not only a discussion you need to be having with your clients up front, but with yourself when you're looking at the services that you're offering and the type of projects that you're completing in your design business. So what is really the thing that you're doing wrong in the grand scheme of things when running these projects? Most of the time it's running it like a big project, like a small project, small project like a big project, but you're not putting boundaries in place. This is the big one. By not putting boundaries in place, your scope of service is going to scope creep. The client will say, well, I thought you were going to include this, or why aren't you doing, or can you just help me find, this is the good one, can you just help me find the lamp for the living room, because I've been looking everywhere and I can't find it. Of course you can't, because it's hard. So, that kind of, little comment can be 5 hours of your day. Just, you can't let it happen. Put the boundaries in place, and that is going to say this is not included. If you want me to source that lamp, this is the price for me to do that. So secondly, you need to, firstly, you need to run your project different. So you acknowledge that they're different. Secondly, put the boundaries in place. And then thirdly, I think you need to be accepting that they are about the price, and there it just really genuinely is. There's only so much that you can provide for a specific price. So knowing that, and then obviously calculating how many projects of these that you need every year to keep yourself afloat as a designer, means that you're going to really put this into perspective. Which takes me on to the final thing: is not all of your projects should be small projects if you are a designer who does offer projects for under 100K. Why is this? Well, because the best way to run your business is to have little projects and then big projects. So small amounts of money coming in regularly is a really, really good thing. But then always having small amounts of money coming in regularly is not not like a great way to grow your business when you're trying to work on bigger projects. So aiming or leaving space for a big project every few months is actually a really important way to grow. A lot of designers, and I was the same at the beginning, I just took on every project that came through the door, and never had space for a really big project. Even when it did come in, I was like, what am I going to do? That's when I last minute hired people, which ended up being a disaster, and wasn't very well. In the end, I had to do everything myself. I literally worked day and night to do it, which was just, you can't do that. I always say around 30 hours per week, and if those projects, those small projects, are taking more than that, you need to say no to some of them and leave room for those bigger projects, because you need those bigger projects to fill in the gaps, fill in your knowledge gaps, fill in the money gaps, and give you those bigger opportunities to run a full service project and a bigger, better quality project, which are the projects that you're going to get these wonderful portfolio photos from, not these smaller ones. Because even though, like I said at the beginning, even though a 100K project feels like a big project to you, in the grand scheme of things, it's not. And the amount of service, even if you were taking on one project a month, which most people don't, then that's only 120K a year. So it's, and that would be 12 projects, and being very, very rigid about 30 hours a week, 100, or one project a month, which in reality it doesn't work like that, because projects don't just have that boundary unless you create that boundary. So I'll leave it at that. How about you tell me, do you work on small projects? Do you work on larger projects? How did you move from small projects to large projects? Because we all start with small projects. So how did you make this profitable for you? How did you make this work for you? And let's start the conversation.